Ange, good to see you again. Can I ask you how your players are all over the world playing international football during the break, or international break anyway? What do you as a manager do in terms of trying to prepare a team, or is it a bit of downtime for you as well?
No real downtime. I mean, again, we just factor it into it. Like I said, you kind of know it's coming, so you plan for it. We obviously had, as you said, some guys going off with the national teams. Others stayed. Obviously, others were sort of in rehab, and we just adjust our training to all that. Some guys did some extra work, which was really handy for us. Others we gave a little bit of a break to, but we just sort of kept working right through it, and then you just wait for the players sort of to come back at different times. The last of the boys got in, I think, yesterday, and today was really the first day we had everyone back in the building, and you just sort of program that into it and sort of get on with it.
In terms of this spell between now and the end of the season, at least 10 games, possibly 11 games, this is when the prizes are paid out. This is when you find out exactly what the fruits of your work are going to be. Does if training can be heightened up in any way or strengthened up in any way, does it happen that way?
No, I think from our perspective, like I said, we're kind of looking at it from a yearly planning perspective, and the first thing is at this point of the year, as you said, this is where everything gets decided, is that we wanted to be in a really strong position at this point, and I think we've achieved that. But the second part of that was that we want to finish the season strong as we did last year. We're our best form, and we're at our strongest at this time of the year. So, that's been the plan all along. I think, if you look sort of the first stretch of games and then up post-World Cup, I think the middle section we were stronger than we were in the first section, and the plan is now hopefully to be stronger in this third section, the final section. Now, that's all theory. It's still got to come down to the practicalities of doing it, but from the players' perspective, as I said, this is the first day we sort of had them back, but they're ready to go. They understand what needs to be done between now and the end of the year, and beginning with Sunday is to put in a strong performance and finish the season in the manner we want to.
Hi Ange, just on the players returning, how's the fitness of the guys back, and how's the fitness of those who stayed and maybe worked on a few things, the likes of Atati?
So if I go through them, the ones who are definitely out, James Forrest obviously is still a fair bit off. Tony Ralston, Leo Labata picked up injuries with national team, and fair to say they'll be a couple of weeks. And then the others are Rayo and Aaron, who sort of back in training, but we'll just assess sort of tomorrow before we make a decision. I'd suggest if it's not this weekend, they'd probably be right for next weekend, but we'll just see how they go. Everyone else is okay.
Just on Sunday, Malky and his team are in a bit of a dogfight at the bottom of the table. It's never an easiest place to go at the best of times. What are you expecting from Dingwall this time round?
Yeah, it's always a tough game. We've been up there a couple of times already, and it's always a difficult game. Malky sets up his team very well in terms of its structure, and there's a physicality about them, and they're always a threat and set pieces. So you've got to do all those things. I think this time of the year, I think every game has significance. Every team's fighting for something, so there's always going to be a little bit more of an edge and desperation to everything that happens, but it doesn't change sort of our approach in terms of making sure that we've got to perform at the levels we know we can, and we have been, and like I said before, hopefully improve on. And if we do that, then we know we're going to be hard to stop.
Hi Ange, we were just speaking to Carl a bit earlier, and he said that when players come back from the break, the players have come back re-energised, whether that's because they've had some time off, time to train, time away with their national team. Do you feel that the players have come back re-energised, and especially when you've got likes of Callum coming back, having played twice for Scotland in two really impressive victories? Do you feel that re-energy amongst the squad?
Like I said, we've only had them in today, but I think they're sort of I think they're pleased to be back here and looking forward to it. I don't think there's a massive difference. It's just for those guys sometimes depending on sort of how the international break's gone, they sort of for instance, somebody like Carl didn't play any football, so in terms of matches, so he was just training. So he has a different experience to say Callum, who's played both games. So you just sort of factor it all into it. But the group's always been good at once they're back here. You know, they sort of switch into sort of our mode in terms of the way we train and the way we address things. And as I said, today was sort of the first day we've had them back, and yeah, feeling was good.
You were just saying there as well that obviously your aim is always to improve the middle section of the year. You felt has been a bit better than the start of the year. You want the end section to be your strongest form. How do you do that, Ange, when you've won 14 games in a row? How do you keep improving? How do you take it to the next level in these final 10 or 11 games?
Well, it's just, because we're not basing it on results, we're basing it on performances, and I think we can still improve our performances. And, obviously the results are the byproduct of that. And, we always focus on trying to be a better football team, play, be more aggressive in our approach, score more goals. All those kind of, targets and ambitions are always there. And, it's a never-ending sort of thread where we just want to keep showing that we can play better football. And obviously that's not always going to transfer in terms of results because, like I said, I guess we're almost perfect in that last sort of stretch of games. So, but it doesn't mean you can't improve. The results can be the same, but the performances can be stronger, and that's what we're trying to do.
Hi Ange, just 4 games to go, including this weekend before we get to the split. Do you like the idea of that in the league? Do you think it brings anything to the game?
Yeah, look, I guess it was my first experience last year. I guess if you look at the table at the moment, it does give some incentive to teams because aside from obviously fighting for European spaces and obviously there's the challenge to get into the top 6, which I think gives those teams in the middle section a real incentive to sort of work hard through this period, and certainly the teams down the bottom who are trying to avoid relegation, I'm sure they'll treat each one of these games with as much sort of intensity and desperation as they can, knowing that once they get into the split, if they're in touch, then their destiny's in their own hands because they'll be playing teams around them. So I think it works well. Obviously with such a small number of teams in the top competition, I think that sort of breakup, I think, works pretty well. As I said, I think from my perspective last year, it seemed to work well, and I think it will this year.
And as we get towards this end of the season, do you think that coming up against teams, they give a little bit more if they're trying to get all they can out of games against you?
Yeah, like I said, I think there's a real, like I said, there'll be a more determination and desperation for every team because I think every point, every goal matters, to be honest. I think there'll be teams that be looking at goal difference as a way for them to edge forward. So, I don't think there'll be any games where, clubs aren't giving their all because there's so much at stake, coming to this period. So whether it's home and away, I expect, games to be, all games to have a bit of an edge to them.
Hi, Ange, as a club manager, do you take a lot of pleasure when you watch Callum McGregor's performance against Spain, especially given he might be up against some of those same players in the Champions League next season?
Yeah, pleased. I mean, pleased for Callum firstly, because I know how much it means to him to play for his country, and he's as much as he's obviously the captain of our club and the leader of our club, he just cherishes his national team representation, and it was a big night for him, and it was a big night for the team, for the whole nation, I guess, and it's great because it builds belief in the whole group, and I don't think there's any doubt Callum can perform at those levels, but I think for him to do it with his national team is special. So you take great pride in that, and we take great pride as a football club as well because, as I said, he's our leader and he represents us, on the national stage. And I thought he was outstanding in both games. Played every minute of both games, and you saw in the last couple of minutes of the second game that he just has this real ability and determination to get every ounce out of his body, and that's what he does every time he plays.
Is that a good moment for you, those last 2 minutes? Because you might think of 290 minutes at that level, but you see him sprinting up the touchline, and he's still in tip-top shape. Was that a good moment for you, seeing that?
Yeah, I would have preferred the ref blow full time just before then. I thought the time was already up, so I wasn't really sure why he was carrying on. But look, it's no surprise. I mean, I don't, you know, with other players, you kind of go into the national team window and you think, you know, you wonder how much they're going to play, but there's never any doubt that Callum will play all the time. He's you know, knock on wood, he's a pretty resilient individual, and he wants that. You know, he thrives on that. I think if you sort of kept him out or tried to rest him, I don't think it would do him any good, because he's just geared to always performing at the highest level. So it didn't surprise me, you know, that, you know, he was the one that in that last minute, you know, was still sort of driving forward and driving the team forward, and yeah, just epitomises the person he is as much as the player.